Hello, Bridget here, and I wanted to share with you today I am out harvesting spruce tips, and I don't know if you have ever paid attention to spruce trees in the spring, but let me show you. So these very bright, beautiful, see how there's two different colors there? There's the darker ones, that's last season, and probably the year before that, and so on. And then there are these really bright green tips. Spruce has short needles, and there are different types of spruce. So if you wanted to know the specific variety, I don't know that, but I do know these needles. I've harvested them a couple years in a row now, and I actually got here a little later than I normally do. So let me see. See on this branch here how there's the shorter one that's probably about an inch, and then the next one down is closer to 2.5. You really want to harvest these when they're closer to about an inch, inch and a half. But I'm going to go for it and get as many as I can. Now, the other thing to consider when harvesting spruce tips is that these are the new ends to the branches, okay? So I try to take, usually there's 3 on one branchlet, and I try to take only 1 off of each section. So here there's 3, I would only take 1, and I'm going to take the smallest one. I don't want to disfigure the tree or harm the tree in any way. I really want it to continue to grow and be as beautiful and vibrant as it has been. It's a really giving tree. So yeah, just be mindful when you're harvesting to only take maybe 1 or 2 tops off of each of the branchlets. And as you can see, this is bursting with new tips. I've already filled my basket, and I'm gonna get going for the rest of the day. I have a fence to finish building and a few appointments, and then I will continue making the medicinals that I make with these spruce tips, and yeah, more to come. Stay tuned. Well, we're back at the homestead, and as promised, I'm gonna start sharing some recipes with you. This batch here, these are spruce tips in honey, and what I did is I took the tips and I clipped them into little chunks, if you will. I just kept breaking them down and breaking them down because I really want them to get as much of the honey on the needles as possible. Spruce tip honey is absolutely divine, but I wanted to try something savory this year. So this is a standby because we use this a lot throughout the year. It's absolutely delicious on everything, including your fingers. You really don't need to have a reason to dip your spoon in the spruce tip honey. So this is going to sit for about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and then I'm going to strain off the spruce tips, or you can leave them in there and just enjoy them as you work your way down. It's up to you. Both ways are quite delicious. So I have a pot here, and I have 3 4-ounce mason jars that are cleaned and ready to rock and roll. Inside of them, I have 1 bay leaf and a nice, like 6 to 10 black peppercorns. It's up to you. It's up to your taste. So I have that in each one. Now we're also going to use a fresh lemon in each jar, 1 slice, and I'm using white wine vinegar. So it is a 1/4 cup of white wine vinegar and a 1/4 cup of distilled water per jar, okay, as well as 1 teaspoon of salt per jar, because these are going to be pickled, and we're doing a long storage pickle. So I'm going to get them all in the jars with the brine, and then I'm actually going to water bathe them so that they'll be shelf stable for a long, long time to come. It's my first year pickling spruce tips. Super excited. A couple things for you to know here. So the first thing is, see this brown tip on the end of the spruce tip here? You're gonna wanna pull this off, okay? So I've already cleaned all of the tips of these little brown you know, I'm not sure what they're called. It's where the tip was actually connected to the branch. So I've removed all of those, and I've, you know, took some of the bigger ones and I actually broke them in half. And once the brine is ready, I'm going to add these to the jar and get everything going. So stay tuned. Okay, so I have the salt, the water, and the vinegar, and a few extra peppercorns because, hey, I like things zippy. And I'm not sorry about it. So this is going to get to a nice simmer. I don't want it to be boiling. And over here, a couple things that I wanted to share with you. So the first thing is, if you are new to foraging and you feel intimidated or you're just not sure where to begin, spruce tips are so forgiving. They're one of the most generous flavor profiles. They're super, I guess the word I would use is punchy, like pungent. You know how when you bite into a lemon and it makes you kind of pucker up a little bit? Take a fresh spruce tip off the end of the tree and just pop it in your mouth and eat it fresh. They're delicious. You can dry them. You can use a dehydrator. You can put them in the oven at the lowest temperature. You can dehydrate them in the sun. I'll give you a little pro tip, even though I'm not a pro. I love to have a basket similar to this, and I keep it in my car because the car gets really, really warm in the summertime. And so I'll spread out whatever the gathered material is and leave it in the car overnight. And most of the time it dries really beautifully. You can also dry it in the sun. Just keep it in an area where there aren't a lot of birds. We have a lot of bird activity here, so I try not to leave things outdoors and exposed. The other thing is, if you feel like, I don't really have the time. I don't have the time to go foraging. I got this plus what's already in the jar with the honey in about 20 minutes. And I went to a place that I'm familiar with, that I foraged at before. And I asked if today would be a good day to harvest. And the trees were, you know, completely willing and in agreement. And I left an offering there. And I gathered what I needed. I didn't take excess. And I was really conscientious about how I gathered them because, you know, these are the new growth on the tree, and it's kind of like when you get a haircut. It's really helpful to get your hair trimmed regularly because it encourages growth. So we're actually helping the tree to put out more next year, but for this season, you are taking away some of the new growth. So I do like to be conscientious of how many I take off of each branch. I think I showed you in the earlier part that most branches have 3. Some of the older ones have a lot more to offer. But if you have 3 to a branch, I try to only take 1 spruce tip off of that branch. Okay, the brine is ready to go. I'm going to start packing everything into all this material into the jars and pour the brine over it. This is kind of cool. You can already see the alchemy at play. See how the outer leaves are really bright green, and then the inner ones that have more of the acid from the vinegar on them turned a lighter color green. That is the alchemy at play. Now I'm going to get these into the water bather. So here we are. We're at the end of the water bathing, and as you can see, the pine spruce tips, they shrunk up quite a bit. There's a lot of liquid. And all the tips are at the top, even though I packed them in and used chopsticks to poke holes and make sure that everything was covered. So now these will go downstairs on the pantry after they've sat out overnight to cool. And we will have these for garnish on pretty much anything that you can think of. Bon appetit!